ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. This is Johnathan Lee Iverson, your ringmaster, and I'm on Holistically Speaking with Hilary Russo. It is literally about a celebration of living beings. And that's all living beings. And whatever package you come in. And that's how I think we're looking to change culture into seeing your neighbor, whatever package they may be in, whatever God they may worship, however they might love, whatever pigment they may have, however tall they might be, maybe they're missing a limb, whatever. But how do I start seeing them, and how do we interact, and how do we accomplish what we need to in this collective?
Now that is a voice that brings some energy, wonder, and excitement to the day, doesn't it? Hello, my dear friend. It's time to continue the conversation. We are back for Act 2 of this very special two-part series on Holistically Speaking about finding your peculiar genius. Now, if you're just joining the fun here and missed episode 82, I highly recommend you go back and give it a listen after you pull up a seat with me today. This one is really special to me. It hits home because, as I've shared many times on this show, it is truly part of my story and my strength that I am the child of a father with a disability. My dad was an amputee, and I actually witnessed a lot as a child that really opened my eyes to the multi-able community. So when I heard about the Omnium Circus, a place that lives and breathes community, diversity, inclusion, disability, and visibility, I went right to the top. The big top, that is. The place that ringmaster Johnathan Lee Iverson calls home. And this week, he gets personal about his own life with Omnium. Everything from the traumas to the triumphs that exist both in and outside of the ring. You'll meet some fascinating people he calls family. He shares more about his responsibility as ringmaster, and you'll learn more about the future of circus media and how you can always keep the circus alive inside of you, no matter how old you are. And something extra special for you, I'm so excited to collaborate with the Omnium Circus to take you to the circus to meet Johnathan and some of the cast members after being dazzled from your seats. Holistically speaking, it is now time to get on with the show. Johnathan, let's talk about the circus after Ringling Brothers and coming into the Omnium Circus, which is a completely different kind of experience. And what do people have to look forward to when they witness that?
They have to look forward with Omnium Circus, a broader expression of circus. And the beautiful thing about circus, because it's a circle, it's always expanding. And so with our evolution, it's interesting, because how evolution works, right? It doesn't necessarily do away with past things, but it actually uses it to inform. And so we looked at our, I don't want to speak for Lisa B. Lewis, who's just so brilliant, and she is the soul of our company.
She's the founder.
She's the founder.
Yeah.
And, but I think in many respects, she has such a heart for the least of these, those, or I wouldn't even call them the least of these. I would call them those we just kind of ignore, especially when it comes to the diversity conversation. When we're talking about diversity and inclusion, we'll talk about LGBTQ, we'll talk about race and all of these things, and immigrants. Nobody really talks about the multi-abled community. They're almost forgotten. And then when we talk about them like there's some side show. Literally, like there's some, like you just pepper them, they're just some thing, and they're not full human beings. And what I loved about the idea of Omnium is that it's not presenting them as some kind of gag. Like the review, we had this stellar review that just came out, and I want to read just this portion to you.
Please do.
This thing, it like hit me in the soul, because this is exactly what we're going for. This is exactly what we want our audience to understand is the vision of Omnium, and to have a reviewer actually get it was amazing. So the reviewer said, and it was two reviewers actually, this one said, disability visibility took on a whole new meaning. We learned to see completely past the performer's deficiency We learned to see always their excellence. In that sense, Omnium Circus was much more than a thrilling entertainment. It became a profoundly personal, transformational experience. Even as the show was happening, it was changing how we perceived the people in it.
That's beautiful.
And that's the point. You know, it's like Jim Brickerbauer, this stellar aerialist born with no legs. You know, she's not some gimmick. She's literally a world-class athlete. She and I joke about it because I told her, I said, Jen, you know, I was born fully limbed. I'm 6'4" tall. I'm not anywhere close to the athlete that you are. She was a multi-athlete the whole bit, but she came up in a home where they did not let her say can't. And this was from when she was very little. She was adopted into this home. And, you know, her mindset, it's not a gimmick. When you talk to Jen Brickerbauer, who is also a well-established speaker and author, you know you're speaking to a full person. And I'm aware I don't have any legs. That's not the thing. Now look what I do. You know, look how I live. And that to me is the real secret sauce of our company, is getting us all to learn how to stop seeing each other through the prism of our own prejudices. And everybody has their biases. I had to learn mine when I was in Ringling Brothers, you know. I mean, I remember one of my this guy, and they used to call him my sidekick, and I hated that because he's extraordinary on his own. His name was Paulo. He was from Brazil. He was a little person. He was literally the best athlete on the show. Easy. And he was strong as an ox. He would actually pick me up, all 250 pounds of me, on his shoulders and do squats. And kids would be floored about it. But I had my own kind of bias when I first met him. Oh my goodness, I got to carry this guy around. Please forget about it. This guy almost blew me off the stage if I wasn't careful. Same thing when I ventured into Omnium. It wasn't the same, but you know, it enabled me to go into Omnium with this open heart. So I am with this wonderful dancer named Anna Gitchen, who is also deaf. And Anna she's partnering with me in what I think and I told her, I said, you know, you're not just signing to the audience. Because you're a dancer, we're creating a language together.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so she and I work a lot in creating a kind of rhythm. I have to position myself in a way where she can pick up on my words. And so she's able to have the integrity of her signing in addition to performing, because she's a full-out dancer. She's a physical artist, and it's real, and that's her passion. And I found it fascinating because, you know, in my head, I'm going, man, how can you dance and not hear? Like, how do you do that? And she does it very well. I mean, she's just brilliant. And it's like we have this synergy, and it's fast. I've learned how to adjust myself to how I communicate with her as she does with me. It's opened me up to what that world is. I didn't even realize that in signing, there are different forms of signing. Like she was telling me, we were in to watch the metropolitan area. So she says she messed about it. She's like, oh my goodness. So I'm talking to this person, and I'm using New York slang. I said, New York slang? I said, what are you talking about? Yeah. So she signed a certain way. She said, in New York slang, I would sign like this, but they're from Baltimore or whatever. So they do the traditional way. I said, of course that would make sense, right? Because English isn't English all across the board, right? The way just take New York City. The way we speak in Manhattan is not how they speak in Brooklyn.
No, every borough is different.
Right.
All the dialects. Right. So there's dialects within ASL or whatever kind of sign language you're using. You have to kind of move with the energy of the room, right?
And so the beauty of all of this is, oh my goodness, we are now challenging ourselves first as a company, and we're hoping to challenge you all to start looking at your neighbor and getting out of your box. And instead of kind of being ensconced in your own fear of, I don't know. Actually, you approach it. And well, how do I communicate how do I see you as a full human being? Oh, okay. Like we know the obvious may be missing, or the obvious ability isn't there, or whatever. But like, you look at Jen Bricker-Bauer, her upper body is something to marvel at. I mean, a woman is freaking Herculean strong, and she's lifting her husband as well, while he's playing the trombone. It's just one of these things where
who isn't?
Right. And so, And so you're looking at this and you're going, my goodness, the human capacity to evolve beyond whatever supposed limitations you might have is extraordinary. So I'm looking forward even more to finding more artists who are doing this and who are now who have a chance to express themselves. There are a lot of people who are doing some great things that we probably haven't heard of because they don't have a platform where they can display that. Well, now they do. And we literally are, and when we say diverse, like it's so, Lisa, she's funny, she's this white Jewish woman, and she's so on it about our company, when it comes to our board, our staff, everything, where we're almost hyper aware of what we're missing. And we are very open about being corrected and being guided into, because the last thing we want to do is create this tokenish type of scenario. That's not what this is about. It is literally about a celebration of living beings. And that's all living beings. And whatever package you come in. And that's how I think we're looking to change culture into seeing your neighbor, whatever package they may be in, whatever God they may worship, however they might love, whatever pigment they may have, however tall they might be, maybe they're missing a limb, whatever. But how do I start seeing them, and how do we interact, and how do we accomplish what we need to in this collective? Because we're here. So how do we accomplish in this collective? And not just only human beings, we're talking about animals too. We have, in our last show, we featured a wonderful dog actor. One of the dogs actually had 3 legs. So it was a wonderful performer. So it's really about this celebration of living things. And that's the miracle is obviously, I think a lot of these people are bold, because someone said something very impactful. It said, the disabled community is the only community that anyone can, at some point, probably can become a part of at some point, I mean, it's possible. And there are a lot of people who will lose the ability to do certain things, or through some accident or whatever, they might find themselves a part of that community. And so that's an ever-growing community. I wish we really had more policies that were really serious about that community, not just token lip service, but really serious about it. My hope is that Omnium will not only that we will grow and that we will, take our message across the world, but my hope is that Omnium really spurs a real a wonderful reckoning within the performing arts, and also in everyday workspaces, because you never know what's missing until you address it. And I just think it's, through this medium of circus, and it would have to be the circus to do it, through this medium of circus, to hear a reviewer say exactly what we were looking for. That's exactly what it is. We want you to see people as whole, even if they're physically not, but they have hearts, they have humor, they have romances, they get their heart broken too, they have their quirks, they have their biases. They don't need to be catered to in a certain way. They're as human as you. And so I love it because it is a wonderful exercise in getting beyond myself.
Oh, yeah, totally beyond yourself. And I think about what you just said. We're not going to be able to know about it until we witness it, till we're put in the face of it. And as a child of a father who was an amputee, and I was confronted and was around that my entire life, and witnessed how people treated us in public, and you build a compassion to it too. You have much more compassion when you see it. And then my mom, always being in the philanthropic field, we used to go to places like Blythedale Children's Hospital. And my mom had and this is a really beautiful example too. I didn't even think of this, but we had a goat growing up, Kipper, and growing up in Westchester County. And there was so much opposition to us having a goat. This is a farm animal. It shouldn't be in Chappaqua, New York. I mean, my dad was an attorney and he won the case. It's a benchmark case against Russo versus the town of Newcastle, because we won the case that this is actually a pet. And Kipper didn't just sit in the backyard. He had a cart that he pulled, and we would go to like Blythedale. And I remember this one time, and other places as well, but this one time I remember I was throwing a ball with a child. There were a line of children waiting to ride on the little goat cart, on Kipper's little cart. And that right there is therapeutic. But I was throwing a ball with a child who had no arms, and he was laughing and joyful. And this always gets me really choked up.
Wow.
And he was just throwing it back at me with his feet, and I'm throwing it, and I have all my limbs, and I'm witness to this. And I'm thinking, this child is complete joy. He was my age. I don't know where he is today.
Wow.
But I hope he's doing well. And I think of all the children that have those experiences where they can live in joy and be a part of something bigger, and be of service, and use their peculiar genius to become adults with peculiar genius, and share the space and use your voice and amplify, like you're doing within Omnium, to create this circle, this big top blue marble, to create awareness that we all have that beautiful thing. But that, for me, and have a better understanding of disability. And you actually called it, what did you call it? You called it something else. You didn't call it disability. You said, what did you call it? You didn't, I wrote it down, but I can't even read my own handwriting.
Maybe multi-abled.
Multi-able. I love that term. I've actually not used that, and I think I'm going to start using that more. But being a part of something like Omnium, which is a multi-able circus, and not everybody has, well, we all have disabilities in some way, right? I mean, we're all dealing with something but creating a presence within Omnium that's giving people the gift of seeing how there are possibilities.
Right.
Whether you're missing a limb or missing a tooth, who cares, right? Right? It's what we're able to do is just so beautiful. So I just want to say thank you for that. And let me just share something with those who are listening. You mentioned always looking for acts. So you're already doing Tim's job.
Well, it's much easier for me now because, we have the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
And, people reach out to us via Instagram or LinkedIn. I met a wonderful artist. Actually, I stalked her, to be honest, because I was blown away by her story. And her name escapes me now, but this wonderful artist, she became disabled after a fall from, I think she was doing an aerial act, and she became disabled. But this woman is like extraordinary. So she figured out a way to become a hand balancing artist, and she has a way of this contraption that she invented to basically control her legs while she's doing hand balancing. I think she does some other kind of crazy athletic something. She's just like unstoppable, put it that way. She's unstoppable. And we're hoping to work with her in the near future as we build. This is an exciting time for us because as we're a non-for-profit. So obviously we need partners and sponsors and donors and things like that. And we're growing. Our engagement at the Capital One Hall was very successful. We're building partners one at a time. We have some sponsors and things like that. But, obviously we're dreaming big, we want to do a world tour. We want to do things like that because, we want to be able to give, various artists platforms to really express their craft in the best possible way. We hope to have multiple units of Omnium Circus, not just one show, but multiple units of it, and different venues or different entities of it. You know, maybe we have one that does corporate engagements or theme parks, or just one that is constantly touring, or maybe we're stationed in Vegas or something. We have a residency in Vegas, you know, a la Cirque du Soleil, you know, who knows? But, you know, the sky's the limit when you're building. Our vision is big. We are blessed to have people on board who are so very positive, who have vast imaginations. And I'm not just talking about just performers. I mean, our staff, our board, just hardworking people who aren't getting rich doing this, but just love the idea that our contribution might actually be making the world that much better. And that's to me, that's a wonderful thing. I mean, that's the most important thing of all, that to know that we're part of something that has the great potential of changing the workspace, changing how we look at each other. I mean, I don't think you can beat that. And to lend my voice to that is a high honor. And I'm humbled that I've been chosen in some way to be a part of it. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. Of course, it's challenging. When you're building anything, it's challenging, and there'll be more challenges to come. But the thing too is I think me personally, and I'm sure the company, but we also gain inspiration from our neighbors. You know, it's hard for me to be kind of down about any of the stuff I'm going through when I'm working with people who either already came into this world with a big, odds stacked against them, or entered into that particular life by happenstance or whatever, and they still have the courage and the creativity and the daring to still make something of their life and something beautiful out of their life, that it can reach many. So, I mean, I think that's my soul B shot. That's my soul B12 shot.
I love that. Soul B12. So it reminds me of something my dad used to always say to me when I was a kid. And, you know, you're in that state of like, everybody wants to fit in when you're a kid. And even as an adult, I mean, we go back to the inner child all the time, right? Who doesn't love us? We're not accepting? Walking out before you go under the big top, you're like, are people going to like this, right? The whole idea that disability doesn't mean inability. That's what my dad used to always say to me.
I love that.
Hilary, disability doesn't mean inability. And he got up every morning and he put on his prosthetic and he went to the office, or he did what he did, and he showed up and lived, you know, and there's so many people doing that. And if you're struggling with that, you know, there are people that can help you. That's the work I do as well. But also, if you're at a place where you want to share that gift, get in touch with Omnium. I'm going to put all the links on the podcast page.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it also reminds me of, like, I've gotten into TikTok. I'm not really a TikToker.
Me neither.
I mean, I joined because I was told you need to put your voice out there.
You got to do this. Right? You got to do this.
I mean, however you have 1 million followers or 5, whatever, you're touching those 5 starfish and hopefully throwing them back in the ocean to thrive. Right. But I find myself scouring the TikTok, and somehow in my For Your Page feed tends to be the people that are sharing some kind of amazing talent. And I'm thinking, there's a place you can go find folks.
I know. Yeah. Circus is huge on TikTok. There was there was an article written about it. Like, you know, it's like, if you just put in hashtag circus, it's well over 5 billion. You know, so I mean, circus is like, now you've got circus performers who are now like these huge personalities on TikTok with well over 1 million followers, and they're able to book much easier. And I think that's great. And that's also moving us into how circus continues to evolve. So in a podcast series I did with circustalk.com, we co-produced a podcast called Circus Voices, and you can find it on any wherever you get your podcasts. And anyway, one of the episodes, I spoke to a Kiana Weber. I always want to call her Warner. Kiana Weber of the Weber Brothers Circus. She comes from this fantastic family out in New Zealand. They boast the biggest circus out in New Zealand. And they have a reality show now that is the number 2 show on the Bravo channel in New Zealand. And the way they ended up with that show was that they actually had created content for their YouTube channel because they thought, look, people should enjoy our lives or whatever. And they were right. I mean, and it's been a huge hit for Bravo New Zealand. In fact, I know Kiana actually contacted me as of this recording. She's in the States right now shooting an episode. So I think it's expanding. I say that because I think what we're going to see now, as we're going to see kind of a hybrid thing occurring, not just in circus, but in many companies as well. I do corporate events, and, I did this wonderful corporate engagement where it was a hybrid, where I was in a studio and I was hosting, teleprompter, the whole thing. And on the screen, they had all of these people aligned with the company from all over the world. But there were other sections of the conference or convention where it was live and people were present. I think COVID kind of threw us into this space where, we had to make this interesting adjustment. And out of it came all this creativity. And so with circus, you'll now see, especially with this younger generation of circus artists, who are much smarter than us old heads about how to really take advantage of the World Wide Web, how to really take advantage of media. We're seeing that, oh my goodness, circus doesn't just have to live under the big top. There's a lot of circus media going out. I just mentioned circustalk.com. There's several other podcasts, The Artist Athlete, Hideaway Circus, Live Like an Acrobat. There's my show, In Center Ring. You have all these different types of circus media coming up. In addition to now, you have this reality show here. You have all of these fantastic circus personalities on mediums like TikTok. And so what we're seeing is this interesting new way of expressing this art form. And I think it's also the advantage of that is that it's in favor of the artist, so to speak, because you're more apt to cast hashtag whoever who has 10 million followers than you are to deal with the headache of some trapeze guy from somewhere who, he may be marvelous, but, we got to sell tickets, So, I mean, it's really, I think it'll make it an artist friendly type of environment now, too. And I think the potential for circus's new chapter, so many people thought we were done and over after Ringling Brothers closed. I warned people we were not. Circus is a spirit. Circus is a spirit, so it always finds its way. It never dies out. Even Ringling Brothers is making a comeback. They're casting right now as we speak all over the world. So circus, it is a spirit. It's a way of life. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of being. It's a culture that is in constant evolution. And so we're in this marvelous place now where now more than ever, you see artists who are taking advantage of the social media space. And now it's moving into television and hopefully streaming. And who knows? I think a big help, if we're being honest, was, that marvelous hit film, The Greatest Showman, starring Hugh Jackman. He's so good looking. The fact is that movie, which ironically came out literally the year Ringling Brothers closed. So I'm sure somebody got fired at Feld Entertainment. But I mean, they came out with this hit movie that Hollywood didn't even think would do anything. They didn't put anything in it. When I went to the movie, I knew it was a hit because of the music. I heard the music. They thought, nobody's going to come to some musical. How wrong they were. It was a huge hit, but it also breathed more life into people's curiosity of circus life. And I think that's the thing, why circus continues to be this great curiosity for people is because circus represents our highest selves. our best selves. It goes beyond the great feats. Obviously, people flying and doing daring things and talking to animals is quite marvelous. But what it really represents is people living up to their best selves, living up to what it is they are to the highest degree. My favorite story in circus, one of my favorite, to really just illuminate this point. I have a beautiful, wonderful friend named Christina. And when I met her, she and I just hit it off because it was like she drew me to her, she was drawn to me and I was drawn to her. And we had a wonderful conversation. What I learned was Christina had a marvelous 6-figure corporate gig. She's young, hot and sexy, had a condo in the Northeast, had this beautiful collection of shoes. She was living her best life. These are her words. She was living well. She had no regrets about anything. She was doing what she wanted to do. She happens during her lunch hour to pass by a furniture shop, which also moonlighted as a trapeze school. So she's semi-athletic. She said, oh, let me give that a try. Let me just try it, see what happens. She said to me, and I quote, I did the class and I said, oh my goodness, I have to do this. This woman literally went and quit her 6-figure corporate gig. Everybody thought she was crazy. Her family thought she was out of her mind. She said people were literally laughing at her. She said she went in her car. She said, when I went in my car, closed the door, she said, I was crying because I said, oh my gosh, I'm free. I'm free. She committed herself to training. 9 months later, she was on Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. And she flew for about 6 years in shows like Cirque du Soleil. I think she flew with the Circus Pages family. She did some shows with a company in Japan. She had that life. She's back in the corporate world, but the whole point was she went and took that circus call to her, and she took it.
She grabbed the experience.
She grabbed the experience. And I think you're seeing that a lot with people. I think I always tell that story because I remind people, man, again, it goes back to that circle. And the circle starts when you get to your peculiar genius. And you don't know when it comes out. Like she had no idea.
It lives in you.
Was, just on a lunch break.
Yeah,
it
lives in you. Yeah. And think about it. Like there's so many classes now. You're not just taking CrossFit and kickboxing. Now you can go take a trapeze class, a silks class, a pole dancing class, whatever kind of class.
Pole dancing is really a curiosity to me, I'll tell you.
Fascinated by it. And obviously the first thought with some minds is that, oh, that's cheap and it's, it's stripping. And it's like, do you understand the skill and the upper body strength of these women and men? I've only seen women doing this.
I know men who do it and they do it well. Yeah.
Or even with the silks. I'm like, you're not just hanging on a piece of string. You've got to have the body and the conditioning and the discipline to be able to even say yes to trying it and then to lift your body up and lift your mind up to a place where you're like, I am so in. I'm trying it. And you know what? If I don't like it, I don't have to do it. If I don't want to do it, I can make a new choice. People, I say this all the time. You choose to choose. If something is not resonating with you, make a different choice.
I love that. I love that. Oh, listen, Hilary, I have to tell you though, and I need to pat myself on the back because during my my Roxy stage of my life, I used to do great research in the evenings where those young ladies were really they were the forerunners of the pole. And
your best thinking.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it was funny when I would be sitting there. I used to tell my friend, I said, man, they're strong, man. And we used to laugh. We were like, man, what could you imagine that at the Olympics or something? And all of a sudden, a few years later, you see these classes that that is athleticism. Forget where you thought it started. It is, and in fact, polling is a circus. It's part of circus artistry. I mean, Chinese pole, there are different types all over the world where they do that. I've seen it and it's really incredible. You have to have a magnificent core. And I'll have to tell you, you will never get more fit than when you're with a circus performer. I did it. when I was a young, pretty, and 23, and it nearly killed me, but I had never been in better shape in my life. It was so funny. I remember I have this wonderful friend of mine named Anna from Russia, and she was one of the first people I met when I joined Ringling Brothers. And if you see us, we look like Mutt and Jeff, because she's very short and I'm very tall. And she didn't know any English back then, and I didn't know any Russian, obviously, but we learned to communicate. And as we learned to communicate and grew together as friends, we learned how similar our backgrounds were. She was always commenting on how much she loved my voice and how do you do that? How do you do that? Johnathan, how do you do? And I'm going, Anna, you can fly and do like anything with your body. And we have our little war stories about our mean teachers and how similar they were. But it was so funny. Anna reminded me one time that I had trained with her. And she said, you didn't talk to me like for a week. And I said, my goodness, it was that traumatic, because I must have I blocked it out of my mind, but I know I did it. But she's right, because, they come from serious schooling with that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean when I tell people, I'm like, listen, if you want to really get in shape, you want to work your core, you go find yourself a circus acrobat somewhere. You will be in the best shape of and it will be, the beauty of it too is it's not just cosmetic, it's practical. Like you have more energy than you can stand. You have strength that just is, because it's all of it is core. It's core driven. But the key to it is commitment. It's commitment. And that's the beauty of circus artistry. And the thing I love about I'm always inspired by circus artists of every stripe, of every discipline, is that circus artists have an unrelenting commitment to their discipline. No matter what they're going through, no matter what life is doing, they're not motivated. They are disciples of what they do. And it takes me back to what I was talking about with our great animal trainers. I used to see it. I used to see people, because I used to be hanging out with them all night. And that guy would go to bed at 4:00 in the morning, probably drunk. But I guarantee you he was up at 6 a.m. in those stables taking care of what he had to. It's you do what you're supposed to do because you understand your purpose in the circle. And when you have that kind of thing driving you, I remember that was the thing that drove me in my career, especially the second part of it, was knowing how much my colleagues depended on me to be there for them. Because I didn't just announce and present them. I was the guy who stepped into the gap when life didn't work out so well, when the accident happened, when the technical problem happened. There was always that crew guy who would run by me and say, stretch, stretch, stretch. And I have to come up with something to keep the fantasy going. And, from that, I did experience, the worst. It was the worst day in my career ever, where in 2015, I believe, where we had this tremendous accident. 8 aerialists were at least 30 feet up, hair hangers. This act was gorgeous. It was innovative. It was new. Nobody in the world ever did it. The gentleman who invented it, a great friend of mine, I remember when he talked to me about it before he made it, and he was telling me how he was going to do it. His wife, who's this dynamic Bulgarian, who she trained the aerialist to get them in shape to do the act. And it looked like a human chandelier. They had gone up and down in this apparatus for over 100 and something times. And this one morning, Sunday morning in May, it all came down. And it was so and you talk about trauma is a fascinating thing, because the spirit gives you ways to cope even in the moment. I've heard people who spoke about being molested and how their mind would disconnect from their body, or a person who was being burned to it's like there was a disconnect, so they wouldn't have to take in the full brunt of what happened. And so in that moment, seeing my friends descend nearly 30 feet, it was like an out-of-body experience, because I found myself in a moment having to grapple between these are my friends and I'm their ringmaster. and I had to be their ringmaster, and it hurt like hell because, while I'm keeping the audience in the illusion, the whole time I'm going, somebody's got to be dead. I just assumed it. Fortunately, nobody perished. Fortunately, nobody has long-lasting injuries where, everybody came out. It was actually a miracle that people came out as well as they did. It was a shocking miracle. We couldn't believe it. But to experience that and to see careers basically end, to see people you're with one moment, we're talking, we're making plans, we were planning, we were hanging out hard. So everybody in there had an emotional connection to someone in that act. And I was literally just talking to my friend. We were going to take our kids to see the Spider-Man movie. I think there was a big Spider-Man movie at the time. It was like, oh yeah, we got to go see. Yeah, we got to go. And then they go up and do their act. And all of a sudden we're visiting them in the hospital, not knowing if they're going to walk again. And so that's a part of this. That's when we actually, in many ways, saw that that's the other part of circus, that though it's heartbreaking, you also see how vested the public is in it. Because when they were in that hospital, the hospital just had to adjust because it was packed.
And people wanting to show up and be present for.
And
wow.
They became lifelong supporters of these ladies and still are in touch with them till this day, even after, they've gone on with their lives. Some have had children and what have you, and they built businesses. They've made adjustments. But again, that's one of the, as David Goggins calls it, it's one of the things I pulled from the cookie jar, where anytime I'm getting on myself about, I may not be, I think about my friends, those ladies, and the hell they went through to get themselves back, not knowing if they were going to walk again. Can you imagine you spend your whole life doing marvelous things with your body? Because that's the thing you got to deal with too. And you may not have it anymore. To see them fight back and literally put their faith on the line and come back and be able-bodied as best as they could, to fight through that was something to me that just was so inspiring. And it inspires me till this day. And to live prosperous lives, that many of them have done extraordinarily well after that terrible season in their life.
That is the definition of resiliency.
Yeah.
That's resiliency right there. That's why we get tapped into wanting to watch the Gold Coasts and the TED Talks and seeing people with their, and watching the inspiring videos on YouTube. That if we can't witness it and be in the room with it, we can be in a different room and watch it. But those are the kind of stories that touch, move, and inspire us to realize my life actually is pretty good. And it is a mind and body, right? We have to, it's not just about being physically fit, it's mentally fit, and realizing when we have these moments of doubt and those moments of just trauma, whether you've witnessed it or actually experienced it on your physical body, we are so resilient. And if we can just give ourselves credit to realize the resiliency that lives within us and let go of the other people's fears and just dive into our own fears and say, okay, I'm showing up. This part of me is showing up right now. Let me witness it. Let me appreciate it. Let me love it. And let me realize I can move forward and I can do this. I can do this, and you will. And that's the beauty when you see that. So that's a great story, Johnathan. Now listen, goodness, talk about resiliency. My bandwidth.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, I'm totally kidding. I am loving this conversation because it's just too good. It's just a nugget of love. I love it. But what I want to do is, by the way, I have good bandwidth. We're good.
Okay.
It's very resilient. But, I want to make this something that people are really going to enjoy, and I know they will. So I want to play a little game with you.
Okay.
And let's test your own resiliency. Let me put on my old lady glasses. So I play this game with my guests And I just want to do a quick rapid fire. I've been writing down words as you've been chatting. And
I noticed. I was like, what's she doing over there?
Yeah, I know. I'm always, that's just like the professor in me. I'm going to throw out a word. And without even thinking, I want you to come back and the first word that comes to mind.
Okay.
Are you on it? You with me?
All right. If you say so.
Okay, here we go. Confidence.
Power.
Impossible.
Never.
Peculiar genius. I know that's 2 words.
Living.
Singing.
Breath.
Multi-able.
Miraculous.
Dazzle.
Circus.
Trauma.
Silence.
Disability.
Non-existent.
Fear.
Strength.
Circus.
Purity.
Ringmaster.
Me.
Yay! Love it. You are a delight. I could talk to you for hours.
This was fun. I really enjoyed it very much.
I really enjoyed it. And I want to say to you, thank you, first of all, allowing the time and allowing me to hold space for you and accepting graciously. But I would also like to give you a moment to share a final thought with folks. First of all, let me ask you something. You quote a lot of things, and I do want to ask you this. Do you have a favorite book or something that you kind of is your go-to for those moments of inspiration?
Ooh, that's a wonderful question. Outside of the Holy Bible, I don't know. I know and it's not coming to me right away. I love reading biographies.
You have a favorite?
Yeah, I know I do. I know I do. And
the rapid fire is a little easier, isn't it?
yeah. I read this biography of Little Richard years ago, and it was so good. I read it twice in 2 days. I don't know what it was. I just have this thing about people's lives. And I've always been enamored with him. His claim to being, I'm the architect of rock and roll, but just his genius was really something else. And when you really pay attention, you see his influence in so many, there was a picture of him when he was a younger man. It literally is deadpan for Prince. And you see how many people have pulled from him.
I can see that.
Another wonderful biography that I really enjoyed, another one on resilience. After I read it, it was like no excuses, is Brother Ray, The Life and Times of Ray Charles by David Ritz. Exciting book. And just like the movie was wonderful. Jamie Foxx was brilliant. But the book, I really think it should be required reading. I really do. It's such a glorious story in genius, creativity, unapologetic commitment to self, despite him, suffering the trauma of becoming disabled, because he wasn't like Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder Stevie Wonder wasn't even born blind. It was a medical mistake. And so, but Ray had sight for about 5 years of his life. And to have that go away, I think due to the trauma of watching his brother drown, and to make the life he did for himself, it's really remarkable. Just an incredible story. Just just how fiercely independent he was, just really blew my mind.
We'll share that. I'll put that in the podcast notes so that anyone wants to read it. Since you mentioned it should be required reading, I'm going to trust Johnathan Lee Iverson's words, and we'll share that with you folks. But thank you for sharing that. But I do want to hold space for you for the moment. Do you have a final thought that you'd like to share with Holistically Speaking listeners?
Oh, always, always. I just want everybody to always keep the circus alive inside you. Be open, be committed to your peculiar genius. Trust it. Really trust it. That's the thing. I hope people are being reminded of that as we come out of this pandemic. Be disciples of your peculiar genius. Everybody has an assignment, and you owe me, and we owe each other our peculiar genius, because that's the only way this world keeps spinning properly, is if we commit to that. So keep the circus alive inside you.
That is beautiful. I might have to put that on my wall of quotes. I might be quoting you in the future, like you've been quoting a lot of people. That's a beautiful quote.
Who knows? My wife certainly thinks this needs to happen. She's on me about a book, so I need to get on it.
Declared it, manifest it, make it happen. You heard it here first, folks, or maybe not first, but you heard it here on Holistically Speaking. And I've got quite a few listeners, so hopefully we'll put it out there and we'll get some requests for Johnathan Lee Iverson's book. Thank you so much for being here. You are a delight. I am I'm in a state of joy. And I say this all the time on my podcast, that the people that I have on here and the amount of years I've been doing this as both a broadcaster and also somebody holding space for people in the mental health field, every person that comes on this show is like a masterclass for me. It is such a selfish joy to be able to hear that from people and hear what you have to share. So please know that you too have a peculiar genius.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
And don't stop.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much.
There is still time to join Johnathan and some of the cast at the Omnium Circus on May 14th at the Queen's Theater. And all you have to do to enter the giveaway on Holistically Speaking is this. Just click the link on the podcast page and purchase your seats, support the circus, and then show me your tickets by sharing them on Instagram at Hilary Russo. Post a pic or a video in your feed or your stories, and then tag me and follow me, Johnathan, and the Omnium Circus. That's it. I'm going to add all of those links on the podcast page. And if you're on TikTok, that's an extra entry if you follow me there too at Holistically Speaking. And just share it there as well. And maybe I'll see you after the show. And if you want to connect with Johnathan and find out more about everything he's up to, just visit his website. I also added that link on the page as well. If you loved this special 2-part series with Johnathan, share the wonder and possibilities with just one other person. And tell me what you think by leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen to this podcast. Because I may just read your review during an episode and give you a shout out for truly being a loyal listener, supporter, and of course, a friend. And I'm so grateful for you. And I'm also grateful for the following folks that make Holistically Speaking possible. My editor, David Seiss, the fabulous Lipone Redding, who shares this music week after week, and my friends over at Squadcast, who create the space for me to record this show. Never lose your childish enthusiasm, my friend. Embrace your peculiar genius, and always be kind to your mind. And don't forget to laugh.